What if I told you that there's a drivetrain out there on the market with amazing range and is completely OP when you compare to any other derailleur system out there on the market, but you will also likely never see it on any stock build? That's right. Today we're going to talk about Shimano Q's drop bar configuration in beast mode. I'm going to give you specs about the build as well as my impressions taking it on a tour and riding all sorts of gravel here in Girona. I also talk a little bit about why I don't think you'll see any stock bikes come with this. So if you want this drivetrain, you will have to do it yourself. A few weeks ago, I set up Q's on the Soma double cross behind me there. And since then, I've taken it on several gravel rides, as well as a short loaded overnighter to test out the range, the shifting, and the braking. So how is it? Is this the drivetrain of my dreams? So to catch people up, if you're not fully aware of what's going on here, Q's is Shimano's newest group set, and it's poised to replace Shimano's lower to middle range mountain bike and road group sets. So things like Tiagra, Alivo. It's meant to put everything under one unified roof. There's all supposed to be interchangeable, compatible, and they're calling it all Q's. Confusingly, however, there's also Q's electronic shifting, which to me seems to contradict this lower to middle range. Not only is there electronic shifting, there's also like automatic AI powered shifting. So I don't know actually what it is at this point. To me, it seems like it's become more of a bucket of like misfit toys that aren't their highest end. So maybe all the wired XTR, now that wireless XTR is out, is just going to be labeled Q's. Irregardless, one of the coolest things about Q's is you can actually get amazing range. You wouldn't know this, of course, because Shimano doesn't really talk about it, and most bike media is only focusing on Q's as a 1x drivetrain and ignoring the 2x variants and possibilities. But if you're galaxy brained enough to use a front derailleur, well, the world is your oyster, and you can unlock the widest officially sanctioned range of any derailleur system out there currently available. You just have to be able to think outside the box, just like some of the riders using the gear from this video sponsor, Old Man Mountain. This week's Old Man Mountain Build of the Week comes all the way from the Philippines. Annika, fellow country person, is rocking this 1992 Muddy Fox. I believe the brand is Aria. 90s mountain bike, almost all original components. Love this paint scheme. Annika is a great bike advocate based in the Philippines, where she formed the Solar Commuter Club to build community and organizes group rides and helps people live that car-free lifestyle. And one of those key bits of gear, of course, to live the car-free lifestyle is racks. And here she is rocking the Old Man Mountain pizza rack. So she uses it for commuting, picking up groceries, pizza, of course, and just integrating it into your daily life. Every day can be an adventure on bike. So thanks, Annika, for spreading the bike love, and thanks to Old Man Mountain for sponsoring this episode. Okay, so on this bike, I have a touring slash bikepacking slash adventure slash trekking gearing arrangement with a 3826 in the front. This is the Spider from our alt crank, and it's connected to the Paul Pure cranks. And in the back is a Q's 11 to 45 cassette. Absolutely massive. Just a few years ago, 11 to 46 was what 1x's came with, and that was like large in terms of cassettes. Now you can pair that in a 2x drivetrain without any hacks. It just works. So Q's 2x using a wide range cassette can yield up to 600% range, and that is way more than SRAM Eagle or even a roll-off. Those are about 520, maybe 540 on a good day. With some creativity with Q's, you could even push it to 620% range. Anyways, that's all the theory, but how did it actually work in practice, off the stand and on the road? I've been riding with Q's on the double cross for the last couple of weeks, and even took it on a overnight tour just outside of Girona. If you've never used a wide range double configuration, for me, it's actually the best of all worlds. You get the simplicity of a 1x. Since with the wide cassette, you're primarily shifting with just the rear derailleur, but when things get steep, you do have a truly low gear, something a regular 1x couldn't get you. Unlike a traditional road double configuration or even a gravel double configuration with a narrow cassette, you'll find yourself shifting the front ring fairly often especially in rolling terrain or super steep terrain. Contrast that to a wide range double. You can probably leave it in the big ring for rolling terrain and only touch the smaller ring when things get really, really steep. So for example, on our tour, I spent most of the day in the large chain ring. There was maybe 2 occasions where I dropped it into the lower one because the grades were getting into 11%, even as high as 15% with a load on a bike. And during those stretches, I was super glad to have that really low range. In practice, the gearing spread worked just like I'd imagined or that I've experienced in the past. Mostly I'm in the big ring, except for those rare occasions when things get really steep. It lets you crawl up anything. It keeps you from blowing up. At the end of the long day of riding with a load, you can still spin up the hills, no problem. In terms of shift quality, the rear shifted like other Q's drivetrains I've tried. That is to say that shifting into an easier gear is fairly responsive, but shifting into the harder gear is a bit more ponderous. There's a little bit more of a noticeable hesitation than with a regular Hyperglide cassette in my experience. And while this might be a deal breaker if you're riding bikes for money, I think for everyone else, and especially if you're on tour, the trade-off for that more robust rear cassette, more longevity back there, for quick shifting seems like a fairly reasonable trade-off. Though to be honest, I would probably just put a regular Hyperglide cassette in the back as well and just get the best of all worlds. That said, you can only do this, again, with only 11 speed. If you're doing Q's 9 or 10, you have to use the Q's Hyperglide cassettes because the spacing is specific to the shifter and cable pull. In terms of how these road shifters felt, if you've ever used Shimano before, it feels pretty familiar, and it's kind of a slight blend between the boxy paddle of GRX and the more rounded edges of Shimano Road. As a slicker finish, not that same matte finish as GRX, but at the end of the day, it felt pretty similar to like a Tiagra level shifter, which is to say pretty dang good. Not as light and crisp as the higher end stuff, but perfectly functional. I mean, I personally think that Tiagra is the group set of the people. In terms of front shifting, this is where things got a little bit tricky because I was using an off-brand S-Ride road derailleur. That's important to note. And I haven't had the chance to use the Q's specific one. The fact that the S-Ride front derailleur works tells me that it uses the similar pull as other Shimano road front derailleur. I've yet to try the Q's road shifters with the mountain bike front Q's derailleur. So subscribe to see if you want to see if that works. I've been told that it doesn't work, but I want to do it on video just so people know if it works or if it doesn't. Overall, the shifting experience was really good. I like the shape of the shifters. The hydraulic brakes felt great. Overall, for me, Shimano has fulfilled a dream I've had for a while of a natively supported ultra-wide gearing that works with road shifters. I don't know why it's taken this long, but here we are. So like I alluded to in the beginning of the video, if it's so great, why do I think it won't come OEM on any bikes? Part of that is that there's a bit of an identity problem. For those that think of Q's as a mountain bike group set, 1X, a 1x mullet seems to be the more logical choice. For those that view it from a roadie perspective, as a Tiagra replacement, say, they'll scoff at the need for such lower gearing. For us nerds that want low gears because we carry stuff on our bikes or go touring or bike packing on steep terrain and just want to claw back some of the low gears that we had when 3x were a thing, then we're kind of on our own. It exists, but you kind of have to DIY it. I highly doubt you'll see any drop bar bike sporting this setup straight from the factory, although it is technically supported. It's just too weird for the industry. I mean, looking at the Q's page, it says introducing Q's for recreational road and gravel riding. It doesn't mention anything about bike packing or touring or trekking. They're making this kind of fit in those two neat boxes. And, if you're a fan of this channel, then like we kind of exist outside those boxes. It's just too weird for an industry that is like kind of too normie. But at least it's an option, I guess. I mean, that's the upside. So if you're convinced, what are the parts you should get to make your own Q's beast mode configuration? In terms of derailleurs, you want to get the 8020 Q's rear derailleur. I believe the model number is Q's RDU 8020. Be sure it's 2x compatible. It'll say 10, 11 speed, but theoretically, again, it should work with 9, 10, 11 since they all use the same cable pull. For the road shifters, if you want to stick with cable brakes, 9 and 10 speeds your only choice. You want to look at the ST3030 line as shifters. If you want hydros and are okay doing 10 or 11 speed, then you want to get the U6030 shifters. Backtracking a little bit, if you do get 9 and 10 speed models of Qs, you have to get the Qs cassette specifically. Cable pull is different so that it won't work with Hyperglide 9 and 10 speed cassettes. Other things to note, the 10, 11 speed hydro shifters costs like an arm and a leg. I mean, way more than GRX at the moment. To me, that makes no sense whatsoever, especially for a low to middle range group set, allegedly. For the front derailleur, I'd recommend getting the Qs ones, as boring as that is, just so you can save yourself the headache of hacking things together. It seems as if, that it should work with any, Shimano compatible front derailleur. Crankset, you can use whatever you like. If it says 9, 10, or 11 speed rings, it should work with Qs. Again, I'm using a mishmash of the Paul crank arms and the spider and rings from our soon-to-be arriving alt crankset. So those are my recommendations. So far, so good. Again, I'm going to do one more video on Qs, testing out front derailleurs, because that's, I feel like, one of the confusing sticky points. And it's pretty important if you want to run a wide range double. If you guys appreciate this video, I think I'll be one of the few channels or media outlets that will focus on 2xQs, then please consider supporting the channel by joining us on Patreon. That's the best way to do it. It gives us a budget. We can buy parts. I have to buy some Qs front derailleurs for the next video still. Thanks again to the sponsor of this video, Old Man Mountain. And as always, keep the supple side down.